So we have been listening to day 4 of testimony in the Derek Chauvin trial. They're taking their 20-minute or so break that they take in the morning. We were listening to Courteney Ross. She was George Floyd's girlfriend at the time. There was a real focus not only on the type of relationship that they had, the kind of person that she felt that he was, a kind person who they met because he noticed her crying and upset, and he asked if he could pray with her. But they also talked about their mutual drug use. It appears as if the focus was on whether or not this drug use would, I presume that where they're going is whether or not this drug use would make his health more vulnerable and then more predisposed to dying under the circumstances that we saw him die under. We learned that he had an injury and as a result was prescribed painkillers like Vlad. This is a story that we've told over and over and over again. Prescribed opioids, found himself with an addiction to opioids, and there's a possibility, according to the testimony, that he may have used heroin. His girlfriend said at times to investigators that she believed that he had used heroin, but then she kind of said that she was just speculating. And so that seemed to be kind of the focus, whether or not his drug use made him unhealthy and therefore susceptible to premature death, or whether or not he was a healthy guy who enjoyed football and despite these injuries, was expected to live a very long and healthy life.
Yeah, exactly. And, it was sort of, when you heard her say that the opioid addiction that she shared with George Floyd was, she called it a classic sort of American story, or a classic story, of somebody getting addicted to opioids. As we all know, as we've covered, Anne-Marie, the opioid crisis in this country. So let's break some of what we heard down. Let's bring, we're going to bring in one of our attorneys to analyze this with us yet. But, you
don't have yet?
Yeah, we don't have him yet, but I think Paul Batista is going to join us to talk about this in just a moment. But I was struck by her description. Look, we have the picture of George Floyd that has now been painted on murals.
Yeah.
Everyone has seen it. You've seen it on T-shirts. Let's throw that up, because I had never heard this, Anne-Marie. I don't know if you had heard this before, but when the lawyers, the prosecutors, showed the picture and they asked her to describe it, she called it a dad photo. And I thought that was sort of a sweet moment that I'd never heard before, and I don't know if the jury has, of George Floyd. And I guess she was referencing the fact that dads sometimes take the photo at a weird angle,
right. And, they don't take good selfies.
Right. And it's just sort of ironic that there it is, she called it his dad photo. Just a really sweet moment and insight into the character of George Floyd, which I think is what the prosecutors were trying to do. But that one photo, specifically when she talked about it being his dad photo, because he tried to take a selfie, and I guess dads are not good at taking selfies.
No. There was another thing that both attorneys were kind of focused on, and it was something that the entire country was focused on when we saw that video, and it was what he yelled out as he was, inching towards unconsciousness. He yelled out "mama," and a lot has been made about him yelling for his mother. And, we've heard mothers say that broke their heart when they heard it, that a grown man like that, after yelling for help, after pleading, sort of in his last kind of gasp, just wants his mom. So the defense, I guess, tried to suggest, they didn't say it, but they tried to suggest maybe that he wasn't in fact yelling for his mother, that he was yelling for his girlfriend, because that was the nickname, the pet name that he used for her. I think he mentioned that might have been what was in his phone. And then there was a redirect. And the prosecution, asked, well, who else, what does he call his mother? And she said, Mama. He says it a little differently. And I think everyone can understand. But I sort of wondered, why pick at that detail? Does it even really matter? And you know, when we get Mr. Batista on, we can ask about that. I don't know. To me, Vlad, it came across as petty to focus on that little bit of detail.
I'm not a lawyer, and I don't, know what they're thinking about the long game, I guess, which only they know. But yeah, it was a sort of a weird moment when he asked about that, because I didn't know that he called his girlfriend Mama. But I don't know. I think I said to you while we were watching, and I was like, well, what difference? He's calling out for somebody that he knows, somebody that he loves, somebody that he trusts to come and help him. He's thinking about that person, whether it's his girlfriend or his mother. He is losing himself in the moment. The moment, to me, it signifies the last grasp for something near and dear to your heart. And if it happens to be your mother, or if it happens to be your girlfriend, what difference does it make? He's not in the moment that he is right now. He's reaching for something beyond what he's going through right now. He's not saying, get off me. He's not saying, leave me alone. He's calling out for someone to help him.
Yeah, he's done that already. And he's asked everyone around him to help. And no one has been able to render aid. Either they weren't allowed to, or it wasn't an option that they wanted to entertain. And so now, in sort of final desperation, he's asking for, whether it was his girlfriend or his mother, but someone who he knows loves him unconditionally, to come and pull him out of this situation, because he realizes that, well, I don't know what was going on in his head, but certainly through in observing it, it looks like he realizes that this is sort of his last chance.
Well, the young woman who filmed the video, young woman who filmed the video, Anne-Marie, she said during her testimony, at least to her, it seemed to her that George Floyd knew that that his end was near. Now, again, we don't know, but that is testimony that was entered into the record. And actually, we have that sound. Maybe we can just play it and let our viewers sort of see it and see what they think about it.
I have to ask you if drug use was a part of that relationship.
Yes.
And what kind of drug use was a part of that relationship?
Floyd and I both suffered with an opioid addiction.
And do you know how, like for your own self, how you came to be involved, with what kind of drugs and how you became involved?
Use of opioids, yes. Both Floyd and I, our story, it's a classic story of how many people get addicted to opioids. We both suffered from chronic pain. Mine was in my neck and his was in his back. We both had prescriptions, but after prescriptions that were filled, and we got addicted and tried really hard to break that addiction many times.
So we were talking, Anne-Marie, about this, and you heard her say there that it was a classic story of addiction, and I don't know about you. We've done a lot of reporting on this. I think that the American people have a different perception of addiction, specifically as it relates to opioids, than we perhaps, and drugs, than we did perhaps even 10 years ago, and certainly not the way that we had it when you and I were growing up, right? When everything drug-related, was seen as something that had to do with people who were of a different social class or different ethnicity. And now, I think in 2021, people realize a couple of things. One, that anybody can become addicted to drugs. Anybody can become addicted to opioids specifically. And there was something else that she said that I thought was extremely moving, and if I happened to be a juror sitting there, I would take to heart. When they asked her about overcoming addiction, you remember what she said? She said, you never actually overcome it. Every day it doesn't come and go, she said. It's something that you deal with every single day. And anybody who's ever been addicted to anything, whether it's cigarettes or alcohol or opioids, will probably echo that sentiment. So if you're sitting on the jury and you know somebody in your life or somebody in your loved one's life who's dealt with this, that will resonate.